Good morning, fifth graders. Today we are on page 251 of your student journal, and we're on Unit 11, Lesson 11. So we are just continuing with what we did yesterday. I know yesterday's video and lesson was pretty hard because it not only introduced new line plot ideas, but it introduced this topic of dividing with fractions, which is very different than we've done in the past. So today we're going to continue that idea and get some more practice with it. So our objective is exactly what it was yesterday. Today I will use division to solve multi-step word problems involving line plots. So our exact same objective. Now yesterday, remember we came across some stuff that we did not have notes for, so I think today we'll stop and take notes for that. Earlier in this year, you probably learned to divide fractions, but mostly with pictures. What we saw yesterday was actually dividing fractions using more of the algorithm. So when you divide fractions using more of the algorithm, there is that thing, and we can put it up here, called KFC. And KFC stands for three things. Keep the first. Sorry, my first is sloppy. I might rewrite that. Keep the first. Flip the second. And C is change the sign. And the sign goes from division to multiplication. And you did learn earlier in the year how to multiply fractions. So we're going to be referring to that today if we come across problems that are that challenging and require that. Okay, so I'm going to get started right away. Here's my first problem. The amount of snowfall in the Sierra Nevada mountains for the last week is listed on the table. Find the amount of snow for each day if the total amount of snow had fallen equally each day. Okay, so the first thing I see is when I look at my denominators, I see a 2, a 4, a 2, an 8, a 4, a 4, and a 2. That tells me that my least common denominator is going to be 8. So I'm going to need to change them all. So 1/2 would be 4/8. 3/4 would be 6/8. 1/2 would be 4/8. 3/8 can stay. 1/4 would be 2/8. Another 1/4 is another 2/8. And another 1/2 is another 4/8. Okay, so now I am able to make my line plot. And even though my largest is 6/8 and my smallest is 2/8, I'm going to be just going by eighths because of my line plot going from 0 to 1. So I am going to first partition this. That will help me. Okay, so I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, 7/8, and 1 is equivalent to 8/8. Okay, so what do we have? We have 1/4, a 6/8, another 4/8, a 3/8, a 2/8, another 2/8, and another 4/8. So now that I have all of my data points ready, I could count them to make sure, and I do see I have 7, and there's 7 here. Okay, so I have 2 2/8. Well, 2 2s would be 4/8 plus 1 3/8, so that one's just going to stay. 3 4/8, so 3 4s would be 12/8 plus 1 6/8. So total I have 4 plus 3 is 7, plus 12 is 19, plus 6 is 25 eighths. Okay, so total 25 eighths of snow fell, but they want me to divide that between 7. So if I divided 25 eighths divided by 7, well, 7 is the same as 7 over 1. But then here becomes that KFC, right? So keep the first, 25 eighths. F is flip the second, 1/7. And C is change the sign. So keep the first, flip the second, change the sign. And I get 25 times 1 is 25. 8 times 7 is 56. And that would be my answer. I know I can't simplify it because the only factors of 25 are 1 and 5 and 25. And 5 is not a factor of 56. Okay, so let's see another one. This one has a lot more points of data than the one above. It says a baker had 12 sacks containing the following amounts of sugar. So again, when I look closely, I see denominators of 1, 2, 8, 2, 8, 2, 8, 2, 4, 8, 4, 8. So again, my least common denominator is going to be eighths. So 1/4 would be 2 eighths. Both of these 1/2 would be they would each be 4 eighths. I can maybe put them up here. The 3 eighths is fine. The 1/4, this one's going to be 2 eighths. I might have to move it down there. They don't give me a lot of room. This 1/2 will be another 4 eighths. 7 eighths is fine. 5 eighths, 3/4 would be 6 eighths. 1/2 would be 4 eighths. So now I have changed them all to have the same denominator, and I can set up my line plot. I'm going to do just like before. I'm going to first partition it, and I have 1/8, 2 eighths, 3 eighths, 4 eighths, 5 eighths, 6 eighths, 7 eighths, and 8 eighths. Okay, so we are ready to go. I have over here 2 2/8. I can add those on. I have 1, 2, 3 4/8 up there. I can add those. I have a 3 eighths, another 3 eighths, a 7 eighths, a 5 eighths, a 6 eighths, another 4 eighths, and another 5 eighths. I might check on this one because there were so many when it was kind of messy. I have 2, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. And they wanted me to have 12. So I'm pretty good there. Okay, so let's start adding these. If I have 2 2/8, that would be 4 eighths. 2 3/8 would be 6 eighths. 4 4/8, 4 4s would be 16 eighths. 2 5/8 would be 10 eighths. 1 6/8 and 1 7/8. That is a lot of numbers still to have to add. So I have 4 plus 6 is 10. Then 10 plus 16 is 26. Then another 10 would be 36. Plus 6 would be 42. Plus 7 would be 49 eighths. Wow, that marker is so much nicer. Okay, so what's happening with this 49 eighths? Even though there was 12 sacks, it says if the baker redistributed the sugar equally among 8 bags, how much sugar would be in each bag? So he wants to take the 49 eighths and divide it into 8 bags, which is 8 over 1. Well, my algorithm then is KFC it. So I'm going to keep the first, F flip the second, and C change the sign. So my answer is 49 over 64. And that is my answer. Okay, so let's try some together, ladies and gentlemen. We are turning the page to 252 in your book. And here's my first problem, or our first problem, actually. The fish store has several betta fish in bowls with different amounts of water. The amount of water in each bowl is listed on the table. Find the amount of water for each bowl if the amount of water in each bowl was equal. Okay, so let's first get our numbers ready with common denominators. I see I see a 2, a 4, 4, 2, 4, 2, 4, 2. So our LCD, or least common denominator, is going to be 4. So let's change the 1/2 to 2/4. Our 3/4, that can stay, that can stay. Let's change this one to 2/4. Good, good. Change this one to 2/4. Good, and change that one to 2/4. Okay, so our line plot is definitely going to be counting by fourths. And even though I didn't circle them because they had already given me the numbers they wanted me to go by, you could have still circled them. All right, so let's cross off. I have a 2/4, a 3/4, a 1/4, another 2/4, another 1/4, a 2/4, a 3/4, and a 2/4. And I was supposed to have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I have 4 equals 6 plus 2 more is 8. So we're good to go. Okay, so if we had 2 1/4, that would be 2/4. If we had 4 2/4, well, 4 2s would be 8/4. And if we had 2 3/4, that would be 2 3s is 6/4. So I'm getting 2 plus 8 is 10, plus 6 is 16/4. Okay, well, we have 16/4 and we have 8 bowls. So we're going to be dividing our 16/4. I might come over here where there's a little bit more room. 16/4 divided by 8/1. Which means we're going to KFC it. So let's keep the first, 16/4, flip the second, and change the sign. So I'm getting 16 times 1 is 16. 4 times 8 is 32. So 16/32, and that could be simplified. It could even just be simplified dividing each by 2 into 8/16. 8/16 could be simplified again by dividing each by 2 into 4/8. If you see where we're going here. 4/8 could be simplified to 2/4. And finally, it could also be 1/2. So unless they told us simplest form, all of those answers would be acceptable. Okay, let's do one last one together. The chef will use the following amount of soup in 10 pots. To store the soup, the chef will use 3-quart containers. How many containers will he need? Okay, ready? So our first thing is, let's look at our denominators. I see 8s, 2s, and 4s, which tells me our LCD is going to be 8. So let's change the rest of those. Okay, so our 1/2, we could change to 4/8. 3/4 could be 6/8. 1/8 is fine. 3/8 is fine. 3/4 could be 6/8. I might put it up here. That's good, that's good. 1/4 would be 2/8. And then I think we're okay. All right, so let's set this up and partition it first into 8ths. I always like to start with 1/2 and then 4ths. So I have 1/8, 2/8, 3/8, 4/8, 5/8, 6/8, and 7/8. Okay, So let's add on our data points here. A 6/8, a 7/8, a 4/8, another 7/8, another 6/8, a 5/8, a 2/8, 1/8, 3/8, and another 1/8. And I should have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, which is what I was looking for there. Okay, because these are so spread out, we could almost add some of them down here, but I think we'll just use the same strategy we've been doing. So 2 1/8 would be 2/8, plus I have a 2/8, plus I have a 3/8, plus I have a 4/8. They really spread them out this time. Plus I have a 5/8. Plus I have 2 6/8, which would be 12/8. Plus I have 2 7/8, which would be 14/8. Okay, so we have 2 plus 2 is 4. 4 plus 3 is 7. 7 plus 4 is 11. 11 plus 5 is 16. 16 plus 12 is 28. And 28 plus 14 would be 42. Okay, ready. So we have 42. And we could even check that. I almost feel like I need to check that. I'm going to do that one more time. 2 plus 2 is 4. Plus 3 is 7. 11. 16. 28. 42. Okay, so I'm feeling a little bit more confident. 42/8. And this time, he wants to divide them into 3. So we'll say into 3/1. Okay, so let's KFC this. 42/8. So I keep the first. I flip the second. And I change the sign, which gives me 42/24. Okay, we're going to have to fix that because that's an improper fraction. So I could use division for that. I could say 24 could fit into 42 one time, and what's left over? Well, what's left over is 1 and 18/24. So my answer would be 1 and 18/24. Because those are both even, I know I could simplify those right away into 1 and 9/12. I could also simplify 1 and 9/12 because I see that 3 can fit into both 9 and 12 into 1 and 3/4. So all of those answers would be acceptable. Okay, so ladies and gentlemen, I hope that you're feeling better with your line plots. I hope you're feeling better with your dividing fractions using the KFC strategy. And this is our last video together. So I just want to tell you how much I enjoyed being part of your learning this year. Have a wonderful day. Bye-bye.